Today I want to show you how to expand upon your selecting capabilities. We're going to use some of the selection tools. We're also going to learn how to save our selections so that we can come back to them later, load them so we can still use them in your document. And also another nice feature of Photoshop called Quickmask, and that allows us to refine and edit our selections using the painting tools, the paintbrush, using black and white paint. Similar to what we did with the masking, but it's more for selection. So we're going to start off making a basic selection using one of our selection tools, and then we're going to go ahead and refine that. And we'll save it so that we can actually call it back up later. So one of the go-tos is the quick selection tool here. And I'm going to go ahead and select the back area. Now, a lot of times selecting the solid areas, the areas with more contrast, works out best. So we'll use our selection tool, like I said, and select the solid area. And then what we want to do is inverse the selection. So under the select menu, we're going to say inverse. Now the apple and the leaf are selected. Now let's say you got this far, you had to leave your work process right now, and you wanted to come back to this and work on this later. Now, you don't want to leave it in this state because if a computer crashes or something happens, you lose that selection. Now, this is not a very difficult selection, so it will be easy to do again, but sometimes you will get into, more sophisticated selections, and you do not want to do them again. So what we do is we're going to save that selection. So we'll select under the select menu and click Save Selection. We'll give it a name. You don't have to name it, but it's useful to name it so you know what it is. And then click OK. From there, I can deselect. And I'm always going to make sure I save my file. Command S or Control S on the PC will allow you to save the file. Again, another really good shortcut to know is Command Save or Control Save, Command or Control S. You always want to save. After anything you do, save, 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 save. I can't say it enough. So you don't want to lose any work or minimal amount of work if you can avoid it. With our selections, now where did it go? Let's go ahead and find it. So under where the Layers Palette tab here is, right next to it typically is the Channels palette. If you don't see it here, go under the Window menu and go to Channels. That's where any stored selection is saved. Click on Channels, that'll pop forward. Notice now we have this thing that looks like a layer, but it's actually called a channel, and it has the Apple label on it that we just named. The selected area is the white area. The non-selected area is the black area, and it's a lot more precise than we could do by hand, without using the quick selection tool or the magic wand. Just a little rundown here. The RGB right here is our color image. It's called the composite channel. And basically we have a red channel, a green channel, and a blue channel. This has all the red information, green information, blue information, green information, red information, all combined into this RGB channel, red, green, and blue, to give us our composite color image. And so our save selection is just a form of a channel where you have black and white. Any of these channels, whether it be a save selections, an alpha channel, or red, green, and blue here, are grayscale images. The only one that's actually in color is the composite channel, which is the RGB, and that's the one you typically edit when you're working on your layers here. So on the Channels palette, we can see we have a selection. Well, let's go ahead and load that selection. So under the Select menu, we can say Load Selection, and we can pick the Apple channel as our selection, if I can speak. And you can see here that the white area is the selected area and the black area is not selected. So if we were done with our selection, we can use this for whatever purpose we need. Let's go ahead, and we do want to refine this a little bit. There's a couple areas that we need to isolate that the quick selection tool didn't quite pick up. One of them is down here, and I know it seems like a nitpicky thing, but it will make a difference if you do something to the image and it looks kind of odd. So here, to be able to fine-tune this, let's go ahead and use what's called the Quick Mask. Now you can enter Quick Mask in a couple of different ways. Under the Select menu, you can say Edit in Quick Mask, or if you go down the lower left-hand corner here is the Quick Mask icon. You can click that, or simply hit the Q key for Quick Mask. The letter Q will get us into Quick Mask mode. Now, in this mode, you really are still editing an alpha channel. It's a grayscale image. Notice it says Quick Mask. If I exit Quick Mask with the Q key again, that Quick Mask channel goes away. They're temporary. They allow you to edit the image quickly and easily with your painting tools, but only temporarily. So you enter Quick Mask mode, make your edits, exit Quick Mask mode, and then you either save the selection as a channel, and then it'll save along with your file, or you use it as a layer mask or something else. So what we want to do is we want to fine-tune the apple. So I'm going to enter Quick Mask mode, zoom in here, and I'm going to use my paintbrush, this one. And again, the red area is represented by black paint. If you forget, don't worry, just undo it. Or you can always switch to white paint and color it back out. Remember this little shape here toggles foreground and background, or the X key toggles foreground and background as you see them change. So if you're editing and I'm doing something like this, and I want to, add some black over here, I'm going to switch back, and do something like that. Now I'm going to undo that because that's really not what I want to do. I just want to show you it can be done. So here, again, zooming in, the quick selection tool does a pretty good job, but it's not completely accurate. So here, small enough brush, switch to white because I don't want to see the red. And so on this one though, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit more off than I need. And then I'm going to switch back to black paint and work the other way in. Sometimes it's easier to do that than it is to try to get the brush and get it super tight, in that little point there. So it's just kind of, figuring out ways to get the job done without, having to knock your head against the wall. Okay, Quick Mask mode looks pretty good. I'm going to exit Quick Mask mode. I'm going to save this as a selection, or as a channel, I should say, save the selection. We'll call it Apple Hole. Cool. Now we have the apple as one piece. Now what we want to do is I want to isolate the leaf from the apple. So what am I going to do? I'm going to use my quick selection tool and I'm going to subtract this area here. And so I'm just going to go ahead and choose subtract from and pick this part here. And the reason why I want to do this is because I'm going to go ahead and change the color of the apple and change the color of the leaf separately, so that way, so you can see how you would use a selection to modify your image. Okay, so what are we going to do here? With our selection, we've got this isolated pretty much. We can go in and fine tune that. I'm going to still subtract from a bit more here. Now it jumped too far, so I'm going to undo that. And I can try to get this out with the quick selection tool, but the contrast is so similar along here, it's not going to work that well. But let's use a quick mask. Letter Q or quick mask icon, or select menu, edit in quick mask mode. We know we need to get this part out, this area here, so I'm going to use black paint. Oops, I forgot to change my tool. So I'm going to get my paintbrush over here, and again, using black paint, I'm going to paint that out. And now we have a more refined selection. Hit the Q key again to exit quick mask mode. And then from there, all I have to do is save that selection. Select, save selection, leaf. Click OK. I can deselect that if I need to. And, oh, I keep forgetting. And then File, Save. Keep saving. Now notice we have the apple as a whole. We have the leaf here. Oh, on the leaf, maybe we didn't notice the edges here. So we can actually edit on this. I'm not sure you can see on the video. Probably now you can. But I'm going to take my paintbrush and I'm going to go ahead and paint this with black paint. And again, you don't have to be super accurate on this one. All I'm doing is removing any of these little edges that the quick selection tool may not have gotten. That looks pretty good. Okay, so we have the apple completely. We have the leaf by itself. What if we want the apple without the leaf? So just the color of the apple. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to load the apple as a whole. Select Load Selection, Apple Whole. So the whole thing is selected. Now, let's go ahead and under the Load Selection, let's get the leaf. But instead of saying New Selection, we're going to actually say Subtract from the selection. Okay, so what that's going to do is the shape of the leaf is going to be subtracted from this selection. It's basically like removing that. So I'm going to click OK. Notice now the shape of the apple is this part, and the leaf part is no longer selected. So let's go into Quickmask mode and click on our layers here. Yep. Composite channel. If you can't see the layers, click on the composite channel and you get back there and click on that. So notice now the apple is the only area that's not in red. Now if we really wanted to fine-tune this further, we need to go ahead and get rid of the little stem here. So again, if I want that to be red, now I'm going to use the quick selection tool. If I want it to be red, that means it's no longer selected. When you see it, that means it's selected. Okay, that took a little bit too much off of there, but we'll get rid of that. So even in Quickmask mode, I can still go in and make some selections here. Some of these, you just have to try it and see how far it goes. If you see me bouncing back and forth, it just means I tried something and then I undid it. All right, that's pretty close. I mean, it's pretty ugly, but it's pretty close. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my paintbrush, switch to paintbrush, and I'm going to paint that in, at least this part. It's almost, in a sense, it's kind of pointless why I did that whole thing because I could have gotten done faster with the paintbrush. So again, you just have to try things, see how they work. So here I'm just going to go ahead and paint the stem, trying to get as much of it as I can and not anymore. So playing with the paintbrush sizes. Again, the left bracket and the right bracket make the brush smaller and bigger. So you definitely, it's so handy to have. And here's, let me zoom in here. Remember, toggle with the X key. And then toggle back. And now I have a more refined selection. If I need to see what that Quickmask looks like without the actual image, I can just go in and hit the tilde key, which is like the little squiggly key in the upper left hand corner. But just try to get in there as best you can. Make your selections or make your refinements like I did here. Occasionally you forget which you're painting with. Keep like this, so keep working at it. And this part right here, we're gonna make red, and I think that'll do it. Cool. All right, so that's that. I'm going to exit Quickmask mode. Now I have the apple by itself. Let's save that as a selection. Apple solo. Okay. And then I can deselect that. So let's go ahead and take a look at our selections here. We have the apple as a whole, we have the leaf by itself, and then we have the apple by itself. Again, with that quick selection tool, it picked up a little bit extra on the leaf. So what I'm going to do is take my paintbrush and again use black paint to remove this little line. Now I'm removing the line because you don't want that as part of your selection, because that will be partially selected. So anything you do would be applied to even this area out here. As faint as it might be, it would still be part of the, whatever adjustment you put to the image. So we have an apple, the leaf, and the apple hole. Now this was an extra one. So, you might want to do a little housekeeping like I'm going to do here and get rid of this apple. Notice the little trash can in the lower right hand corner. I'm just going to drag that to the trash can and boom, it's gone. I'm going to save my file so I don't lose anything. And so now what you're going to do, or what I'm going to do, is I'm going to change the color of the apple and change the color of the leaf separately. So it's kind of a little bit like our colorize assignment, but with a lot more precise selections. So under the, we're going to do two different ways to colorize. In our colorize assignment, we did the color blending modes on the layers. I'm going to show you how to use an adjustment layer on this one as well, so you can actually have a couple of different methods for doing this. So let's first load the leaf. Select, load selection. Let's get the leaf going. Click OK. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new layer. So layer, new layer. I'll call it leaf. And let's just give it a color here. What don't you see very often? A magenta leaf. So it's an empty layer. We can see if we turn this eyeball off, it's transparent by the checkerboard. So I'm going to do an edit fill. And then I'm going to fill it with the foreground color, which happens to be that magenta. Click OK. Deselect. And so now we have a magenta leaf. Again, we can change the blending mode to color mode or overlay or anything that works best for your image. It's kind of a nice little tint, so we're going to go with soft light on this one. Okay. Now we want to work on the apple by itself. And so again, under the layer menu, select menu, load selection, and we're going to say apple solo. So now that part is selected. Now we loaded that as a new selection so that we're just working on the apple. Now let's do a different approach to colorizing the image. And this works well if you want to make subtle color changes or extremely drastic color changes. So what we're going to do is under the layer menu, we're going to make a new adjustment layer. And this one we're going to call hue saturation. Click OK. And by default, when you have a selection active, it becomes your layer mask. And so here in your layer mask, you can see we've got this little icon, and then we have our adjustment options here. Let's look at our channels palette again. We have all our channels here that we had before, but now look at our hue saturation mask is a channel. It's an alpha channel. And so you edit it the same way as we did with the quick selection tools and so on, and the saved selections, black and white paint, adding or subtracting to the selection. In the case of a layer mask, you're showing or hiding what's on that layer. Remember, white paint shows, black paint hides. We can see here that our layer mask, oops, clicking on the wrong stuff, is the white area, so that's what's going to change. The black area won't be affected. So let's take a look and see what those adjustments do. So with hue saturation, I can just shift. If I want a little subtle shift, I can do that, or I can go to something extreme. Now this is just the hue the color, the hue of the apple itself, and so not the leaf at all. And so here, if I wanted to change the blending mode even on this adjustment layer, I can change it to color mode if I wanted. I can change it to multiply. I can play with overlay. One of these blending modes to kind of really give you a interesting, maybe even scary effect. And basically on this one, what I did was I converted this apple into a plum. It's genius. On the hue saturation, you can increase the saturation, make it more intense, or you can desaturate it to make it less intense. Okay, so make it a little bit more intense. So maybe if I wanted to make a cherry, I can do it this way, but I will make a kind of a plum. Cool. All right. For the leaf, let me show you another little feature of layers here. For the leaf, let's say you wanted to do a different color than the magenta. You want something a little bit more appropriate for our new plum apple. And let's go with maybe, how about yellow? And I'm going to click OK. That's our new foreground color. So let's fill that shape. Now we don't have a mask on this one. So here, under fill, we're going to fill with a solid color, with the foreground color, which is now the yellow. And we're going to normal 100%. I'm going to leave this unchecked for the moment. I want to show you why. Click OK. Now the whole thing gets selected. So in other words, if I turn this off, that whole layer is filled. And that could be a problem. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to leave the other layers off for the moment. So I'm going to go back to Edit, Fill. This time I'm going to turn on Preserve Transparency. All that's saying is that anything that has paint in it, fill it with a color. Anything that doesn't, or anything that's transparent already, save it and make it, keep it transparent. And click OK, and there. Now we can only see that fill go into that area. Whoops. And so what I'm going to do is turn these other layers back on, and now we can see that we have, a slightly different color. If I go backwards, you can see the fill only applies to that area. So to recap, all we did was we went in, used our selection tools to make a basic selection. We went into Quickmask. Before we saved it as a selection, we went into Quickmask to help refine it. And again, you can, under Select Menu, Edit in Quickmask, or go down here to the Quickmask icon, or hit the letter Q for Quickmask. It'll allow you to go in and edit your selection using the painting tools. White paint will add to the selection, black paint will subtract from the selection. Once you've done that, go back to the Select menu and say Save Selection. If you have an active selection, it will allow you to save it. And then when you're ready to use it, load selection, and you can go ahead and load it and either use it on a separate layer here like we did, or create a layer mask with an adjustment layer or some other type of layer with a layer mask, and really fine-tune your images. The beauty of this is that if you notice that once you have this adjustment layer and it wasn't quite getting everything or was getting too much, you can go back in and further refine this layer mask using the painting tools just like we did. So there's a lot of edits you can make using the paintbrush, using your channels, whether they be alpha channels or masking channels. You have a lot of control doing this. Hopefully I was helpful. We have some more information coming along, but right now let's focus on this and kind of keep practicing. And as always, don't forget to save, 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 save. Talk to you soon.